When relationships start, enthusiasm for our partners is typically natural and intense. We think of them constantly, we want only to spend more time in their company, we delight in their many skills and accomplishments. But this early phase of powerful admiration and longing rarely lasts. The world often explains this cooling as an inevitable result of sheer exposure. It is, they say, typical to neglect what is always around. But the true reasons seem more complicated, more psychologically rich and, in their own way, a lot more hopeful. If we stop admiring, it is chiefly because we are, at some level, furious. Anger destroys admiration. We cease to love because we unknowingly grow entangled in various forms of unprocessed fury. We can't cheer the partner on because, somewhere deep inside, we are inhibited by trace memories of certain letdowns, large and small, of which they have been guilty. Perhaps they caused us immense difficulties around an examination and never apologized. Maybe they flirted with a friend of ours and refused to admit to the fact in a way that left us tricked and unsure. They may have booked a holiday without asking us and then insisted that they'd done nothing wrong. Every infraction was not on its own necessarily always particularly serious, but taken cumulatively, a succession of minor disappointments can acquire a terrible capacity to dampen and ultimately destroy love. Yet it is not the simple fact of being let down that counts very much. The true problem comes about when there hasn't been an opportunity to process our disappointment. Irritation is only ever toxic when it can't be rapidly and thoroughly discussed. Perhaps we tried to explain what was wrong, but we got nowhere. Or, more subtly, we might have felt unentitled to make a fuss over so-called small things and therefore said nothing, even though, in our depths, the small things mattered immensely to us. With great unfairness to our partner, we may have forgotten to admit to our own sensitivities even as we developed a steady burden of resentment on their account. What follows from such buried anger is something that can be mistaken for disinterest. We're not so keen on celebrating their birthday, we withhold sexual attention, we don't look up when they walk in a room. This could seem like the normal impact of time and familiarity. But it is no such thing. It is evidence of cold fury. We do our anger an honor and can start to dismantle its deleterious impacts when we recognize the distinctive stranglehold that frustration can acquire on our emotions. We never simply go off people. We only ever get angry with them, and then forget we are so. To refine our instinctive enthusiasm for our partner, we need to accurately locate our suppressed distress. We have to allow ourselves to be legitimately upset about certain things that have saddened us and properly raise them for as long as we need to in a way that lets us feel acknowledged and valued. A good couple should allow for regular occasions when each person can, without encountering opposition, ask the other to listen to stories of incidents, large or small, in which they felt let down of late. It goes without saying that we might not immediately see why a given thing should matter so much to our partner, but that isn't the point. The objective of the exercise is just to let the partner know that we care about whatever they happen to be concerned about. To ensure that our desire never suffers, this kind of hygienic ritual might unfold as often as once or twice a week. If couples too often ignore the requirement, it is because they operate under an unfair burden of bravery. They assume that it cannot be sane to want to make a complaint about things that give an off an impression of being minor and so stay silent about their upsets until it is simply no longer possible for them to love. Wiser couples know that nothing should ever be too small to cover at length for what is ultimately at stake in a marathon conversation about a single word or event can be the fate of the entire relationship. It might, in a similar spirit, not be silly at all to devote an entire evening to understanding why a partner got silently immensely upset by the way we said the word ready to them at breakfast the day before, or was a little slow at laughing at a mildly unfunny anecdote about a train and a suitcase. The gratitude that will flow from such an effort to understand them will be amply repaid the next time we feel abandoned because they forgot to put the lid back on the olives or omitted to add a second X at the end of an email. To complain in love is a noble and honorable skill very far from the whininess with which it is sometimes confused. The irony of well-targeted and quickly raised complaints is that their function is so very far from negative. Honesty is a love-preserving mechanism that keeps alive all that is impressive and delightful about our partner in our eyes. By regularly voicing our small sorrows and minor irritations, we are scraping the barnacles off the keel of our relationship and so ensuring that we will sail on with greater joy and admiration into an authentic and unresentful future. We can spend a lot of time in relationships to which we are ostensibly committed wondering, maybe with a fair amount of anxiety. Do they love me? Is this solid? Might it all suddenly end? But perhaps less time asking the more salient question, what can I do to help this valued relationship endure? We can fall into an error of seeing love as a passive, mysterious gift that we are in no position to generate, direct or guarantee, rather than conceiving of it as an emotion that for the most part flows fairly logically, steadily and naturally on from things we are in a position either to do or not do. And, to come to the central thesis, love tends to be a consequence of a partner feeling cared for and heard in the way they have almost certainly frequently signaled to us that they need to feel, in order to be inwardly assured that they are in safe and tender hands. To hazard a generalization, most people tend to signal their emotional requirements pretty directly, if we are in the mood to listen. In other words, there is much we can choose to do or not do right now, today, in order to weaken or strengthen our loves. We are for the most part active agents, not passive victimized spectators. The other's love should under normal circumstances be thought of as a predictable reward rather than a random benediction. There are surely cases where people are keen to maintain a relationship but are then left for no reason that they could ever have guessed at or influenced normally by people deeply and secretly ambivalent around the terrors of commitment. But in the end, not so many. To maintain love, we need more than anything to follow a few simple-sounding rules that can nevertheless be very hard, for what we should acknowledge to be complicated psychological reasons on our side, to act upon. First, the partner must feel heard. Second, they must feel we are on their side. Third, they must feel appreciated according to their own distinctive love language. This might mean that we need to leave the kitchen a certain way or that we have to take their views of social life or intimacy into account. Fourth, the partner must know we are making an effort in their name. Fifth, they must feel wanted, emotionally and physically. Sixth, insofar as we are difficult to be around, and we all are, we must explain why. We need to give our partner an accurate map to our areas of immaturity. We need to tell them calmly and with grace how we are a little mad and, with reference to our pasts, why. We must never insist proudly or defensively on our normality. I'm so sorry and I'm listening should be our two most habitual phrases. And lastly, we must strive to remain calm around their most trying sides. We must not humiliate them about their flaws. We must become excellent teachers and diplomats of difficult messages. If we do all this and a relationship ends without us wishing it to, we are entitled to feelings of acute bitterness and grief. The fault has not been with us. We have had the misfortune to love someone who was not ready to receive our gift.